What's up? It's your boy, and I did not quit leatherworking despite what you guys think in my last video. I can't tell you how many people thought I was quitting. I know it was the title of the last video, but you guys got to watch the video. So this video is kind of a follow-up to that one, so if you guys want to check that one out, feel free to watch it. But today I'm going to be talking about what inspires me as an artist and how I approach things and how I think about things when I'm creating my art. The big takeaway from the last video is basically, I said I was gonna quit leather crafting, and that's basically like a weird, almost like mental box I put myself in. Like when you decide to, become a leather crafter, you decide to be a leather crafter instead of just going like, hey, I'm an artist, I'm going to decide to be an artist who happens to work in leather crafting. And that's basically the box I freed myself from, and it feels really good. I'm not gonna lie, this past couple weeks making stuff and doing artwork has felt a lot better. I feel like I'm able to take more risks and kind of do stuff that other people haven't or don't do, and that's quite frankly like the magic of being an artist, or the magic of what I do, or the magic of just being good at any kind of art or craft. So here are the 5 things that have inspired me and turned me into the artist that I am today. As a leather crafter, you might expect me to have tons of like leather artists and stuff I'm inspired by. Not super true. Like there's certain people that I admire and certain people that I aspire to be like. For example, Western Skies. Western Skies Handmade is the best. I love how she does unique art. She takes leather crafting and turns it, into her own, but there's not necessarily something like, I don't necessarily see her work and go, oh wow, like this is stuff that I want to do, but I do admire her. I admire Don Gonzalez's work ethic. I admire, D. Loftus's, just abilities to be an absolute killer. But I'm gonna start with the leather crafter who inspired me the most, because quite frankly, leather crafting is one of the things I'm least inspired by. My biggest leather inspiration comes from this dude, Britt Nance. I don't know what happened to this guy. I'm not gonna lie, when I very first started out, this dude was a massive inspiration. I was just like mind blown by the type of work that this guy does. I don't know what happened to him. I mean, his last post was how long ago? I mean, damn near 5 years ago. But in the very beginning, this guy, I saw his work and was just absolutely taken away by it. Now I'm looking at it, there's people who have caught up to this dude's level of skill, but 5 years ago, there was very little people doing what this guy does. In terms of how microscopically tiny some of this work is. I don't know what happened to Britt Nance, but I hope he's okay. I hope he's alive and healthy and well and has a beautiful career and his family's happy and healthy and all that stuff. But Britt Nance, especially in the early stages, was a massive inspiration. I remember when he dropped this post, this was like the most mind-blowing shit I had ever seen. Like, it's so microscopic. I think the thing that I pull from the most here is just like how much detail and like, dude, this is on this is on a freaking wallet. Like this is on a money clip. Like this is bonkers. So seeing this level of detail, it really did inspire me to go like, oh wow, you're a beginner and you can't do any detail. So there's people out there doing this type of work, so what the hell? Like, step your game up. Like, this is, on a money clip, this is ignorant. This is absurd. This is mind-blowing. So, Britt Nance, if you're out there, I hope you're alive and well. This freaking Jesus on the cross is mind-blowing, man. Like it's one of those things I don't even know if I want to be this good one day just because I know how much time this is going to take. So Britt Nance is my biggest leather inspiration, and as you can see, 5 years ago it was the last time he posted, and that shows you how much I actually take from leather crafting. I try and live in the world of leather crafting, but add to it, add something fresh, add something new, do something that's never been done before. I don't want to just be some carbon copy of somebody or go, hey, I like the way this dude does flowers, and I like the way this dude does this, and I like the way this dude does that. So I'm going to take all this shit from them and then just like come up with my own unique idea. So I wanted to knock that one out of the way. But in terms of like where I started as an artist, my best friend and heterosexual life partner, Randy Sandstrom, we grew up together doing artwork. Well, my cats also inspire me. Look at how handsome this boy is. Look at this handsome boy. We grew up doing art together. We were teenagers. You know, we used to hang out in my room, listen to music, and just slam art together for hours and hours and hours every day. So although me and him have different art styles, we do have kind of some of the same fundamental tendencies. You know, I grew up doing art that was like completely unrelated to leather. Those years and that time doing artwork with my friend Randy will like always have a permanent, you know, mark on my identity as an artist. He ended up growing up to be a graphic designer. He's a professional graphic designer that works for companies and a ton of other stuff. You know, here's some of his work. It's funny because he's wacky as hell. You know what I mean? My buddy, my friend Randy is the most psychotic human I've ever met. You know, like I said, he's a graphic designer. You know, I take influence from graphic design in general and him. He does these really nice, bold graphic images. I guess you could call graphic design as a whole. You know, here we are, what is this, almost 2 years ago? Damn, this was a long time ago. You know, just really sick, strong, bold images. He's a really talented drawer and painter as well, which I wish I could see more of nowadays. But yeah, so like here's some of the stuff he's done for me. He was the person who designed my logo, so he'll always be a part of my business. And you know, I'll show you guys some unreleased graphics that we never ended up doing anything with. I could have swore I printed this on a shirt, but I don't, because I would have kept this one forever. This is obviously a Minor Threat style graphic, which I might have to run back, because now that I'm looking at this after all these years, this shit is hard. You know, I grew up on Chicken Ranch, so of course he's gonna do some kind of chicken related stuff. But fuck, this is so sick. I wish I ran this graphic. I still might run this graphic later in the future. But this was a shirt that we ran. So my buddy Randy and his graphic design stuff has always been an inspiration. This was the original logo that he designed for me. You know, all these kinds of different styles of my logo and whatnot. Without the time with him as a teenager in the room, just being troubled youth, kind of running away from both of our parents, or, you know, both of our sets of parents, and just laying that foundation of art in both of our lives, I would 100% not be here doing art for a living. So, you know, now that I'm talking about it, Randy has got to be my biggest, you know, influence to be an artist ever. My mom, you know, painted very occasionally as a kid, but she wasn't like a painter, but without those hours working on stuff, I just wouldn't be, you know, an artist. We're gonna move on to the next bullet point. I know this video's probably gonna drag on, so we're gonna move to the next point. Everything not leather crafting related, you're gonna see a really big running theme with what inspires me and what has influenced me in my art style. So one of my big inspirations, it goes along the line of graphic design, but it is vintage advertisements. The reason why I love vintage advertisements so much is, you know, you look nowadays, you know, everything's either photo, video, logos are super sleek, you know, the Nike logo, the McDonald's logo, you know, even random companies. You look at like, you know, HP, you know, the HP office jet is just a really simple logo. All these logos and advertisements are either real life or just really simplified designs. And with that, I take huge inspiration from vintage advertisements. As you guys know, I have a ton of vintage ads, you know, scattered through my house and my shop and stuff. And you can kind of see a running theme with all this stuff. The thing I love about vintage advertisements is that they're bold, they're graphic, and they just grab your attention. This feed bag is one of my favorite pieces that I own. You can see, you know, from a mile away, you can see these two roosters fighting, and you're like, wow, that's kind of cool, these two roosters fighting. And that's what grabs your attention, right? So that's the main focus point, or your focal point, you know? And then you go, okay, now that I'm looking at it, like, what else am I looking at? And then that's when you realize, you're like, boom, Quaker, egg mash. And you're like, okay, you know, that's the secondary information that you're processing as you look at something. So you go, wow, they got the roosters to grab my eye. Then that leads me directly into, this is Quaker brand egg mash. And I'm like, oh, wow, cool. And then as your eyes move down, it's like the Quaker Oats Company. And that's how kind of all this other stuff is too. For example, like, here's some more stuff. I love, obviously the old car and stuff. Like this is just this red Texaco sign. I mean, any of these automobile signs right here, the Texaco and the Mopar and the Sky Chief, like they're just so bold and bright, and there's just no information that you don't need. It's just like, boom, Sky Chief, Texaco gasoline, period. And it's bold, it's in your face, it's visible from 1,000 miles away. It just catches your eye, here's some other stuff. Here's this ammunition company where you're like, oh, this is like a big cat. Oh shit, this big cat is staring this guy down. And it takes this image that's startling of this, this mountain lion prowling for this hunter. And you're like, oh shit, what's gonna happen next? And then it's like, no worries. The Peters Cartridge Company has your back to, blast a mountain lion if you're being attacked. Same thing with this rooster, this Hancock, gasoline sign. I own this company, or I own this sign, and I look at this sign every single day. And I hardly remember that it's even for gasoline, because the image of this rooster and this car is so bright and vibrant and in your face that your eye just goes directly towards it. And then, from there, if you see it, that's where you kind of read the rest of the, secondary information around it. Now this sign, to me, this is the absolute perfect representation of how I approach my art and my leatherwork and my art style. This might be one of my favorite signs. This is the beautiful thing about graphic design, and why I take inspiration from it is because it almost tells a story without you understanding that you're being like walked down an adventure. Like when you're taking a glance and you look and you're like, what? That's a crazy big chicken. What the hell am I looking at? And then it's like, hey, the chicken caught your attention, and here's what you need to know about it. And then it's like, boom, big scratch feeds, big Park and Pollard Co. And as you stare at it, there's more, more layers down. So the chicken's boom in your face. Then the next most important thing, the second layer back of what you're processing, what information you're processing, is the scratch feeds, Park and Pollard. And then the next layer down, it's like screen scratch feed, red ribbon scratch feed. It's telling you, what they sell. And then beyond that, the next layer down is going like, we sell layer bust poultry feeds. You don't realize you're being walked through this entire, thing, right? So you have like highlight point 1, highlight point 2, and all these pieces of information, while in the background of it all, it's also telling the story of this chicken on a ranch, standing on a ledge or whatever. And this is very similar to how I approach my leather work and my leather artwork, whatever you want to call it. Here, I'll pull up a perfect example of this. Okay, so here's a great example. So here's like this wallet that I did, right? The dude's like, I want to go with skulls and roses and stuff, but, I want like a skull to look really sick. So I'm like, okay, when I hear that, I go, he wants the skull. The skulls are the number one priority, right? The skulls are the message that we're trying to portray with this piece of art. And he also wants roses and some floral. So I take that kind of graphic design, bold imagery way of thinking. When you see this thing, this skull is so bold and bright and in your face, the first thing you do is you look at that skull, right? That's what grabs your attention. And then you move backwards down the layers of things that are not as important. And if you've ever heard me talking about laying out artwork or the way that I do it, I talk about it in layers, and the thing that's in front is the most important, and as you push to the back, they become less and less significant to your design. This skull grabs your attention, and then you start looking backwards into the image. So the skull would be like the chicken. And then the next thing you notice is these big bold roses, which is basically, the name of the company, the scratch feeds and the name of the company. So moving backwards, the floral is a supporting artwork. Right here on the, the chicken sign, it's telling you the story of there's this big hen who is, on this ranch somewhere, who is clearly very healthy and vibrant because she eats this brand food. And that's kind of the same way that I kind of like to undertone, you know, everything that I do with the Western and floral stuff, because you take this, you know, big skull and this rose, things that are completely unrelated to Western stuff, you set that into the scenery of Western floral tooling, and that's how you tie your Western stuff back into this. So that when you look at this wallet, you're getting told the story of this wicked skull and this like tough, you know, maybe dark and mysterious rose. You know, this stuff represents a person who is influenced or is, you know, a part of the Western kind of world or whatever. I'll be honest, vintage graphic design is my biggest influence. I'll tell you guys right now, this is why this chunk of the video is so big. There's a big hook of the big graphic image, and then there's the setup of the Phoenix Rodeo, and then the snatch, and it grabs you and it tells you where it's at, and you go, oh, that's cool. Oh, what, the Phoenix Rodeo? Oh, February, this date, like, I think we can make it. Definitely huge inspiration. So that's very similar to how I approach, you know, my artwork. The thing I love, I think, the most about graphic design is that it's like the most stripped down primal version of art possible. You know, you don't have to necessarily have the best physical abilities of being able to like brush in, you know, specific details or paint in specific details, or, you know, be able to create a realistic looking chicken. You don't have to like be able to physically be able to like draw a horse or something like that. Like, it's more like shapes and almost like more of like an abstract idea where you have like these, you know, the bold shape and the color and the thing it does to somebody's mind when you look at it. And then you place a more insignificant thing where, you know, this is the first thing I notice, and then this is the next thing I notice, and then this is like the next thing I notice. Whereas one of the things I see a lot of leathercrafters struggle with here, I'm gonna even give you guys a little quick little art lesson. You know, let's say my customer says, I want a square, I want a circle, and a triangle, and I go, okay, we'll give you a square, a circle, and a triangle. There's tons of ways to go about it, but for the sake of the example, we'll do it this way. You know, one of the reasons I love working with color so much is because it helps tell that story, and colors can definitely help with, you know, that fundamental kind of graphic design stuff that I'm talking about. Okay, you tell me, square, circle, triangle, which one do you like better? Which one looks more intentionally put together? I see a lot of leathercrafters struggle with this thing exactly, where they go, okay, we'll give you a square, a circle, and a triangle, and then just fill it in with random shit. Whereas I like to take more of an artistic approach to go like, okay, I can tell that the square is the most important, the circle is the second most important, and then the triangle is the third most important. And as you can then, and this is me just freehanding this in like 30 seconds, I can tell you that exact story of that chicken sign that I showed you. You have your big square, right, that grabs your attention. In this drawing, you notice this square before you notice anything else on this entire page. And you're technically looking at two drawings, right? So you see the square, and then you go, what's attached to the square? You know, maybe this circle, what I would do maybe is like add a little bit more, you know, maybe a little bit more color or something that makes this circle kind of pop and look a little bit more abrasive, right? Maybe add a little bit more of a color. So this grabs your attention more. So you look at like subject one, you're hooked on the subject one, and then where does your eye want to go naturally next? To this kind of darker spot. You go, then you go subconsciously, you go, I want to look at this darker, you know, investigate this darker spot. And then you kind of go, okay, well, there's these kind of two shapes. What's this kind of other thing over here? And then that's where you notice the triangle. And then the floral and all this kind of stuff is where, you know, it's just kind of the setting of the subject matter. And I see a lot of leathercrafters struggle with this. They give the same significance to everything that the customer wants or the custom tooling. And the way that I approach everything, as crazy as it sounds, I mentally think about that whole step of how am I going to take the viewer of this project down a journey and kind of portray a message or some kind of meaning of importance of what it is my customer wants to portray. And you can tell when people talk to you, especially when you're doing these custom orders, the level of enthusiasm and level of importance of the subject matter it is that they want on their piece. And that for me is like my favorite part of my job. That's the favorite part, is the graphic design and the creating a story out of, you know, flat images on something that you can look and start like fabricating your own, you know, thoughts on this thing, rather than just looking at it and just going, oh, that's, you know, a piece of custom leather with whatever on it. It goes like, dude, that bull skull is sick. Oh, damn, look at that cactus, the way that it's twined in with the horn. And then, you know, oh, damn, I didn't even notice those roses in the background. You know, it just makes everything a lot more interesting. So now you guys know how my brain works. This is why I'm tired. I'm tired of working in the world of leather crafting. Leathercraft is my medium, but I'm not a leather crafter. I'm an artist who works in the realm of leather crafting to try and create something larger than just another wallet, or just, you know, larger than another belt, larger than just whatever bullshit it is with just some floral, you know, done on there. And that's not to say that there's not people who create absolutely beautiful floral. I'll shout out, you know, Mormaid. Mormaid is absolutely, you know, talented at creating, you know, the swirls and all the intricate type swirl stuff. You could really tell the guy loves drawing swirls. I'll shout out Angle D Leather as well. Angle D is an absolute murderer the same way, you know, in his own right. Like, those are just different styles. You can tell that those dudes are inspired by leather crafting. You can tell in their work that that's what gets them excited about it. You can't spend 8 hours of your day every single day working on the same microscopic thing without liking it, you know? So with all that stuff being said, I'm not quitting leather crafting. I'm approaching it the mother effing way I want to approach it.